Hello friends. Welcome. I'm running a little bit late today. I had training today and wasn't quite prepared for tonight. So we're here now and trying to make sure I have everything. Which of course I do not. Like super handy. It's all happening. I apologize for the delay. Grabbing all the glues and stuff. Let's do all the things. So sorry. Let me make sure hubby's computer is muted. 1 second. Okay, let's see. Last but not least, my phone. Okay. Welcome. Thank you for joining the live. If you're not here for the live, thank you for watching the replay. I really do appreciate it. I do have 3 fun cards for you tonight. Technically 4, because one's a 2 for 1. And it might come in handy. Definitely will come in handy. But let's see. For the first card, we are going to use these colors. Mink, Sage, Linen, and Archival Black. And I had not yet gotten to one final step on the card, but we will get there. It's easy. All right, all of the pieces. Make sure I have everything. And a few things that are not going to make sense at first, but I promise they will. All right, so what do we have? We have the Cosette, card making stamp and thin cuts. And the extra pieces that I had ready. Of course, I am dumping everywhere. Don't need those for tonight's card. Goodness. All right, so we're using a few of the stamps and the sentiments, 2 of those, and trying to move everything out of the way and still be accessible. All right, we are using the largest squared off tag from the Billable Tags thin cuts, and as you can see, I do already have that cut. I do even have a spare in case it's needed. All right, we're actually going to make this a 5x7 card today. So I do have a piece of White Daisy that is 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and then a piece of B&T from the current Mix In pack, and that is the same size, 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and then a 3/8 inch strip to go on the inside. All right, let me go ahead and show you the card. I am missing the little bow because the ribbon, of course, decided to tie itself in a knot right as I was finishing it, and so, well, I guess not ribbon, the embroidery floss. But this is the card that we're going to make. It's super cute, and I stretched the stamps, so this is a fun technique. And so to do that, we're actually going to bring in some acetate, and this is, you've seen this before if you've watched any of my videos. I keep this in my Misty to help, and so this is also the Misty stamp pad, so we'll use that today as well. So let's get started. I would like to go ahead and stamp. So this is, what is this? I think this is about, I don't know. So it's just shy of 1/2 inch. More than 3/8, less than half. It's a scrap that I've had left over. So I am actually going to, it's long. We don't need it to be this long, but it's going to be easier to center it where we want it if we have it too long. So this piece is approximately 7 inches. 9. It is exactly 9 inches, actually. Not that yours needs to be that long, but we just want it, we want it extra long. All right, so we know, here's a trick, actually, before I move on. This is a piece of scrap. So a trick, especially with your black inks, is to stamp a time or two on scrap. And I know mine is fuzzy on the ends because I'm moving, because I'm cold and trying to do it fast because it's a video. But it will help your ink fill in any spots that aren't fully inked yet. So if you do that 2 or 3 times, your ink will be, or your stamp rather, will be nice and prepped and ready to go. So we're just going to stamp For a Friend Like You, just right in the center. And then we're going to let that dry. All right, I'm going to save the rest of the black until we finish. Okay, so we are going to grab our acetate. So we know, let me do a pencil line for you. We want to have our sentiment approximately here, which is approximately the 1/3 line, right? It does not have to be exact, just approximate. And if you'd like to measure, you can, but for today's purposes, I'm just going to draw a line. I don't even think that's straight, but that's okay because we don't have to worry about that. We're covering it up. All right, so we're going to take our acetate, and if you have a smaller piece, that works too. Matter of fact, I do have a smaller piece right here, so let's use this one. Make sure it's not dusty, which I'm sure it is, but that's okay. And we're going to go ahead and line up just on top of our line that we drew. Okay. You can kind of see that on camera. We are then going to take our sage ink and our leafy stamp. And we're going to stamp something like this. We're going to have it off one side. Well, we're going to have it off the right side. We're stamping onto our acetate here. And then we're going to do the same thing on the left side, but we're going to have it more off and more tilted. Okay. So we're done with that. Go ahead and grab a napkin and wipe this off. Okay, just so we don't have any accidents. Next up, I'm actually going to do our linen ink. And then we're going to do the flowers that stand up. We're going to do our little kind of perky flowers. And as odd as it sounds, these are going to be actually super low. Okay. And we're going to do mink. And I don't necessarily need to clean right here because the colors are very, very similar. And this one we're going to stamp up just a little bit. Ideally, you don't have any overlapping, but I didn't want to put my head in the camera, so there's just a smidge. That's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and wipe this off, not over top of the tag. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing, only reversed. We're going to come down just a smidge, so we're creating that kind of boundary around that line. And let's go ahead and grab a Post-it because I don't know where my scratch paper is. All right, and then we're going to go back again with our sage and our leaf. And we are going to move this down, so we want a tiny bit of the stem at the bottom, but we're going to make it look as if this is a really long frond of leaves. So I'm not sure if you can see, because to see here I have to have no glasses. To see on my screen I have to have glasses. But the top of my stamp here has overlapped what we did actually stamp on the paper, our leaf. So it does follow the flow and it looks like it's all one. Right, hopefully you can see that. And then we're going to do the same thing for our other leaf guy. like before. Wipe that off. We are done with our sage. Now linen. So how much of this one you want to see is kind of up to you. You can fully just essentially stamp it again right where it was, or you can bring it down a little bit. Just try to make sure not to overlap onto our leaves because we're not coloring anything, so we don't have a way to hide anything that might overlap, which, I mean, obviously you're not going to be able to see through flowers, so we want to pay attention to that, right? All right. And then for these guys, all we want is just the stems. And so you might need to tilt your acetate just a little bit so you make sure you don't get that lowest flower to come through. Oh goodness. All right, so there is that. And we're done with our acetate. And let's just go ahead and stamp our thankful. Again, does not hurt to stamp and make sure all those little holes are filled in. Okay. So we're gonna let that dry for a few seconds, and let's put together some of this. We can't do all of it just yet. So I'm actually thinking, so I did the stone on the first one. What if I did the plaid on the second one? No. Nope. Don't like it. All right. Well, I'm glad I looked. I was curious. Glad I didn't just go for it. I think I would have been upset. Okay. So this is for the inside of the card. I do have a little bit there that I'm gonna cut off here in just a moment. Okay. So that part's done. Now let's add our foam tape across here. One of the things that we want to make sure of that I failed to do with this first one, so it has some interesting lumps, is I want to make sure to put a piece of foam tape directly behind where we're going to have that strip. The rest of it doesn't matter quite nearly as much. I mean, obviously it does still matter. Oh goodness. I dropped my foam tape on the floor and now it's all hairy. Pets are fabulous. So this is just some of the roll of thin foam tape. Now, we do also want it behind for a friend like you. So what I'm going to do so that I can line this up correctly, this is going to sound weird. I'm on the back side, right? I'm going to line it up in the center, and I'm just going to flip it upside down. I'm doing it this way for two reasons. One, if that ink is not dry yet, this piece is not quite big enough, then if it happens to rub off on anything, it's going to rub off on the back of my tag where nobody can see it. So that's perfect. Great. And two, so I can get it lined up in the right spot. Right. Actually, I got this piece a little bit too early. We will be adding more, but we need to know where to put it before we can put it. I made that mistake the first time. All right. Next step. I know it seems like this is in a weird order, and it is for most cards, but because we want to tuck things and make things sure things are in the right spot, we have to do it in the order that we're doing it in. I know, it's weird. I apologize. That's just one of my little quirks. Okay, so this is just embroidery floss. Is not fancy embroidery floss. I just got it at the Dollar Tree. And so I thought that the black thread would just pop so nicely with the sentiments and make everything else pop so beautifully that that was the way I needed to do it. All right, so we are going to attach our tag. And we're going to do this, kind of on the same theory that we've been working on the thirds. So we're going to put it on the left third in the bottom third of the card-ish. If you know me, you know I'm all about the ish. Okay, so now, depending on your preference, you do not have to bring this around to the back, right? This is what we are going to do for it. But you could just like put a tiny little dot of glue and hold your twine here. Actually, tell you what, we will actually do that on this one. and then you can see the difference between, and you can see which one you like better. Okay, wait, can't do that yet. Before we do that part, almost got me. All right, so this is, actually, don't need this right there. Our tag is glued on. We need to attach this guy on here, right? And this fits just perfectly over our space that we created. So you cannot tell that our greenery does not actually work like it does, like it looks rather. All right, so just make sure that your sentiment is centered. Okay, this one could have been a little bit better lined up, but this one, like, that is like pretty spot on. I'm impressed with myself. You don't have to be, because I am. All right. So we are going to double up just a tiny bit of foam here, because this side is tiny, right? So we only want a tiny bit. This is probably going to be easier with tweezers because my fingers get in the way. And yes, I realize I just turned that all the way around. I get it. All right, and then we're gonna do the same thing on this side. I'm not coming all the way to the edge because I want it to taper down on the edge, right? That one's not gonna taper down quite as much, unfortunately. But that's okay, we can make it work. All right, again, doubling up. We're doubling because we already have 2 layers here. We have 2 layers and a cardstock, and we are only doing 2 layers on our sides here. So we're going to go ahead and put that in there. So it is underneath there. You can kind of see. I know it doesn't want to focus, and that's okay. Now, this actually might be the easier way to do this next step, is to just literally fold your cardstock around to the back. Now, I did just manage to curve that up just a bit, unfortunately. So I'm not going to keep that one like that. I'm going to cut that. Apparently not very straight. All right, and then let's cut the other side. I'm just going to cut because if I have one side folded and one side cut, my brain will be very unhappy. Okay. So to make this do what we want it to do, I have these tiny little clips. One of them that's trying to say no, no, no. 2 of them. 3 of them. Okay. We're just going to take some liquid glass. And we're going to add just a little bit. Let's try that again. Just a little bit to the edge. Oh, come on now. There we go. And then while we do this next step, we're going to go ahead and Got these little clips. Hold on for dear life. And then when they are all done doing their job, the edges will be glued flat. Okay, so now we are going to tie a bow. I know, good luck, right? I wish I had practiced before. All right, I have a fork here. Literally stays in my craft room. Let's see if I can remember. Okay, all right, going to hold across and do figure eights. Nope, because that bow's not going to be big enough. All right. We'll do fingers, figure eights. We'll cut some. Oh goodness. Yes, apparently that is my phrase for tonight. All right, so put this through. It's been a little bit since I've made some bows. So put this through, bring this up. And then through. I had to look at it and I'm like, wait, this isn't tied to anything yet. And then pull tight. And that should give us a bow. That loop is kind of wonky, so something was not quite in the right place. But if we, oh, here we go. All right, let's try that again. All right, 2 figure eights and cut extra. I'm trying to hold this so you guys can see. All right. So we'll start again. So I have this draped across my hand, right? And I'm going to hold it here with my thumb, on my middle finger with my thumb. Okay. I'm going to space my fingers however large I want my bow to be. And then I am going to, okay, maybe up a little bit. And then I'm going to go around twice in a figure eight. Okay. All right. So we have 1 loop. So you can see the 8. And then we're going to do that again. Okay. So now we have 2. That'll give us 2 loops on our bow. Okay. So we're back to the middle. So you have 2 on both sides. We are going to put the end that we cut. I know we cut both ends, but the one we cut off at the end, making sure it's around so it's the bottom of our 8. Put it into the triangle. All right, and then, so if I can do this, if I turn my hand this way, You can see here on this side the end of the embroidery thread, and then on the right side you can see the loop. We are going to pull through the loop, right? We're not going to pull it quite tight, but I'm pulling it tighter, right? So if I flip back here, we have this loop, and it's partially tied, like when you tie your shoe, right? So we just need to go through one more time, right? So now you can see if this piece were to go straight, you can see this is just like you were tying your shoe, the very first part in tying your shoe, right? So we're going to come back here to the middle, and we're going to pull if we pull tight down here, maybe that will help in how it looks. All right, pull off. Yay! There we go. Now we have 2 loops for our bow. So if you wanted 4 loops, you would just make 4 figure 8s. Okay. So yes, this one does kind of stick out interestingly. That's probably because I'm doing something a little bit wrong, but I think it looks adorable. So then we're going to grab a micro glue dot and put it on the back side of our knot. And attach it to our card. Okay. And then we're going to trim without pulling, because we don't want to inadvertently untie it, right? And leave them a little bit long. Okay, so we did say dot of glue. You can also do, again with the micro, I'm just going to kind of roll, and you probably won't be able to see it very well, but it's essentially kind of half the size that it was. Okay, so like I said, we were gonna do that. Now if we take these off, our ends are now attached to our front here. Okay, so let's add our tape runner. And then just center. All right, and then one last micro glue dot. goodness, this guy just does not, and I just tied that in a knot. All right, let's try that again. Sorry. All right, figure 8. So I'm sure there's a secret of if you pull it this way, it will do this. If you pull it that way, it will do that. Maybe it's just I needed to go over instead of under or something. I don't know. It's fine. It will sit on our card and it will be happy. Okay. There is card number 1. It seems like it's taken forever, but I apologize. All right, let's move on. We need to move some things out of the way. Okay, card number 2. Is this adorableness. Look at this guy. So, I wanted a black cat without having to stamp in white. So, you need to do gray. And then I added some coloring. So, let's talk pieces. We have, I think this is slightly larger. This is approximately 1/2 inch. We have some charcoal. It's too big of a piece. That's okay. We have 2 pieces of white daisy, 4 by 5 1/4, 1/2 inch by 5 1/4, and 1.5 inch by 5 1/4. And of course, our card base. We are using an oldie but a goodie. This is the Fabulous Stamp Set and Thin Cut. And this was available last year. It is still available, which is why I'm showing you, because it's super cute and I didn't actually get a chance to use it last year. We have a few pens. We're going to use a white gel pen for the eyeballs. Actually 2 of them, but that's okay. Black blender, the clear blender, and the brown gray blend marker. We have our sentiment, and we have our little kitty cat in the mini Misty so that we could stamp it a couple times. So let's stamp a couple times. Ooh, that would have been nice. There's that acetate. The bonus of it being cold season is I don't need my Misty sock because I almost always have long sleeves on. All right, you know what? 1 stamping is good enough. Normally I would not do this, but let's attach our piece together. This card goes together super fast. I'm doing this piece first so that we can see where we need to do our other things, where to place our little black cap. Right. Bring in our sentiment, because if we get that wrong, we need to start over anyway, right? Try to make sure that's straight. Hello, Rhonda. Yeah, it's definitely sweater weather. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and let that dry for a bit. We're done with our stamping. Let's add her inside. The longest part about this is the coloring, and even that does not take very long at all. I think you guys will be slightly surprised. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are first going to take the darkest end of the brown gray blend and we're going to color in our cat. And yes, I probably should have used Intense Black for the ink, but because we're using a darker color to color with, I wasn't terribly worried about it. That being said, on the parts like the whiskers, I am going to dab instead of drag my pen over it. It's really funny. I know that the lighting is fairly decent for you guys, I think, anyway. It's actually really kind of dark on my end, so it's kind of hard to see the coloring, especially with the gray on gray. Alright, so to help avoid some of the lines that may or may not show up, I try to color in sections. Right, the feet, the side of the body. I try to make it make sense as I'm moving. Alright, so for the next bit, I'm not going to fully cap this pen or the black pen. And I know this is not the newest black pen, but this had a lot of ink in it still, so I wasn't going to get another one. So once I get this open, I'm going to have both of them in, both caps in my hand, so I can grab the pen super quick and easy and color, because you want to do this next step quickly. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to do kind of a slightly dotted but still fully connected line along one side. And so since Kitty is looking up over here, I'm going to put our light source up over here, which means this side of him is going to be in shadows, right? And I'm not going to do the whole thing right now, right? We need it to be wet. And so I'm just going to kind of do a line along his ear. And then with the dark, again, I'm going to do circles, grabbing that color. And then I am just going to repeat all the way down this side. So I'm going down and then back up. I know I said I was going to hold them, and then I'm not. All right, so now I need to do the shadows under his arms. So he's got his arms, right? So it creates, as you can see on the desk, it creates a shadow, right? It's not quite as the same because I have lights coming from all directions. But we want to do just under his arm and just under his paw. And then the back side of his leg and under his feet. And then also one side of his tail. Now I do want to make sure when I'm pulling that color on his tail that my circle is not large enough to go all the way to the opposite side of his tail. And then I'm going to just do a little black nose, and then color in his eyeballs. Right, super cute so far. So this is what we have so far. And then we're going to use the 8 and the 5. And I bring this back in. I have found it helps to always, every single time, start your gel pen off on a paper before you start coloring. Every single time. And then I have found that it is best to do all of one eye and then move to the other eye. And that is because while this ink dries slow, it actually creates a crust on top of itself pretty quickly. And then when that happens, if you try to color over top of it, it moves and it creates that look that everybody doesn't like. All right. So that is done, and that is drying, and through the magic of TV, I have one already ready to go, so that you don't have to watch me cut it out. But now I have another cute one that I can use later. Oh, not done with that stuff. All right, blender and this pen again. So we have more shadows to do, right? Mr. Kitty, it's not just gonna sit in thin air, right? We need to color some space for him. So I'm going to use the middle, mostly because my light is actually fairly out of ink, and so it does not create a nice smooth line like I like. So it might help you to practice what it is that you'd like to do before you do it. So in this case, I'll show you on well, here, let's use this scrap that we've been using all night, right? So we're gonna say Kitty's gonna sit right here. Let's just go ahead and move it to the other side, right? Kitty's gonna sit here, so we need to create the shadow around him, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and move him up just a little bit, just so I can still have that easy reference. And I'm going to kind of create a little nest for him to sit in. And then before that's dry, I'm going to take the chisel end and just do that. I'm not going to do multiple layers. I'm not going to scribble. That is just going to lighten up and kind of feather out the color just a little bit. Okay, so now if I were to move him back down here, so you can see he's kind of in like a little nest of shadow. Okay, so now we're going to do that for real. For reals. All right, so we can have this ready. We can have our lid popped on our chisel end, and we're going to use our middle. Again, I would use light if I had enough ink in there, because I want it to be a light shadow, not a dark shadow. All right, so move this up. And then just pull and push. And then close up your pens. All right, so while that's drying, let's go ahead and add our, oh my gosh, add our glitter paper. Just for a nice pop of color. And we can put this on our card front now. Right out. That's why I had both of them out here. I knew it was going to happen. All right. Let's pop up this little guy. I don't know if the secret to these things is them being cold or me being cold, but these are peeling really nicely today. Okay. And that is our card number 2. Right? Super easy, super simple, ready to go. So glad we're such cool friends. All right, last but not least, gotta move some stuff around. And we need to actually pull out a sheet of cardstock. Let's go with the darker cardstock. Nope, that's black. I don't actually think that's any darker. That's okay. I'm good with this. Okay, so this one, I am going to do the cutting with you, because you can get 2 out of 1 sheet of cardstock. So let me actually move this off to the side and show you what we are making. We're going to make these little guys. They are, how big are they? Good question. They are 4 1/4 by 3 1/8, approximately. So they have a belly band on them, and they open, and they open, and they are a gift card holder. So you could put a little notch here if you wanted to. You can use a punch, a die, whatever. I didn't. I just made the paper just a little bit shorter. Right? It has plenty of space for you to write on here. And, well, I know that the thin cuts are no longer available. Like last week, I wanted to show you that you could still use this stamp set. And I did hand cut this. I did not thin cut this. And so it's super fast and super easy to do. So, that being said, let's get 2 of these out of 1 sheet of cardstock, plus you'll have some leftover space. So, not quite enough to make a card, but I'm sure you could do something. Anyway, I digress. Actually, nope, it'll take too long. All right, let's do this. So, we need a piece of cardstock that is 8 1/2 by 12. What I should have done just right then is something else. But, so, this is what you have left. It's 3 1/2. Okay, not quite big enough for a card. But, if you wanted a third, I'll show you at the end, right? Because it'll be the very last thing. So if you want to stick around for it, you can. If you don't, that's okay. Because literally, I will be going from nothing. I have an idea in my brain. I have not tried it yet. So, this currently is scrap, right? 3 1/2 by 12. Scrap. Off to the side. Okay. So, I'm going to move this aside. It would be best if you had your score blade. I can't find mine. But almost all trimmers come originally with a score blade. If you've lost your score blade, you can replace it. I know I have at least one. I probably have more than one. But that's neither here nor there. I don't have it. When I made up my samples, it was a bit wonky to use the cutting and the scoring on the same thing, although you can. It just ended up a little bit weird. So, we're going to do it kind of a back and forth. So, for that part, I do apologize. All right. So, we have our scoreboard. We have somewhere, here we go, a scoring stylus of some sort. Whatever one makes your heart happy. All right, we are going to score at 4 1/4 all the way down. Okay, simple so far, right? We're going to rotate this. And we are going to, I want to make sure I'm doing this the right way, so pause one moment. Okay, we are going to score at 3 1/8, but we are only going to score to our score line. Okay, so 3 1/8 down to the score line. Right, with me so far? Cool. We do actually need to make another score line, but before we can do that, I actually, you know what? I should have done this originally. That's okay. This is actually one of the mistakes that I made earlier. All right. So we need to cut this down, keeping the score line that we already made. We need to make this be, let me double check. We need to do 9 1/4. No, that's not right. 9 3/8. It would have been close, but it would have been wrong. Okay, 9 3/8 is what we're cutting this at. Okay, so 8 1/2 by 9 3/8. While we have this here, let's go ahead and cut 2 pieces that are 1 inch. Okay, so you now have this scrap. All right. So if you start with your piece already at 8 1/2 by 9 3/8, it'll save you a little bit of time. Okay, score at 4 1/4 with the 8 1/2 cross top. Rotate 90 degrees one way, and then you are going to do from the top to the score line 3 1/8. Okay, we did that already. Then you're going to rotate 180 degrees, so that score line is now here, right? We're going to make the same exact score line from the top to the center, 3 1/8. Okay? Okay, we're done with our scoring. Now, what we're going to do is on these 3 1/8 scores, we are going to continue that line across where it's not scored. We are not cutting the whole thing. Don't do that. We are only going from the score line to the other edge that does not have the score line. Does that make sense? All right, so I have my score line right here. Now every trimmer is slightly different. It should actually still line up at 3 1/8. All right, so if it does, perfect. All your stuff matches up. But I do know that if you cut at 3 1/8 and then try to continue that score line, it's moved over a little bit, so things don't line up. So that's where part of the problem comes into play. All right, so we are going to cut to the score line, and then we have score line up to the top. With me? Okay, so we have a cut, and then we have the score line that continues. I know it's kind of hard to see. There you go. Okay, we're going to do the same thing over here. Probably going to be easier to turn it around. And again, we saw it matched up at 3 1/8, so let's line it up and make sure. Sure enough, it does. So this time, well, actually, same as last time, we're going to cut from the bottom to the score line and not any further. And you have that score line from the score line to the top. I know, I'm saying that word, those 2 words, a whole lot. All right, so now we have this. We have a rectangle that has 6 rectangles. Okay, now we're going to do what I don't generally like to do, and we're going to cut on a score line. We are going to line up. You are going to make sure that your blade is a new blade. Okay, if it's not, which it's okay if it's not, move one side or the other, because you're going to end up doing both. Move one side or the other of your score line and cut. Right, so my score line is right here. I'm actually, just to be safe, I'm actually going to pull my paper just a smidge, just a hair, and then I am going to cut from this 3 1/8 to this 3 1/8, only in the center. Okay, only in the center. All cutting blades have an arrow on them anymore, so you know exactly where your blade is. So make sure that you line it up on this score cut line. Okay, so you're going to line it up right there, and you're going to push down so that you can feel it go through your paper, and then you're going to cut up to this cut mark, and you should feel it when it gets there. Sometimes not so much. It depends. Okay, and now we have 2 pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this one around, because as you can see, maybe, that score line is still right here. So we want to trim that off. So we're going to move that out of the way. So we're going to line up, right? That's where our score line is. And we're going to just move it a hair. Lift so we don't cut anything yet. And then trim off this score line to the score line. All right, so we're just cutting off the score line itself. Now, depending on how things line up, we should be done with our trimmer. If things don't line up quite correctly, then we can go ahead and bring that back in and line things up. Okay, so we might do that, just depending on how things lie. So we want to fold, and of course we want to make sure everything lines up when we do so. So if you scored well, which as we know is not always up to us, okay, then things will fold nicely. So what I want to show you here, and I don't know how well I can do that on camera, but I'm going to try. So if you look right here, you can see that that inside piece sits on top of that score line, right? I find resistance right here at this point in folding, because this piece is sitting on top of that score line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my trimmer back in, and I'm going to shave off just a hair on this piece. Just a hair. Because I want it to sit nicely when closed, so both flaps can close, right? Now, depending on which side you do your score lines on will kind of depend on which way your flap opens. So this time I managed to do it just right, so it opens to the left. Not necessarily just right, but when I was scoring my originals, I had my paper turned over, I think. All right, so we'll probably need to do the same on this piece, but let's fold and make sure. So if your piece opens from the right, like the samples do, that's okay. If it opens from the left, like these ones do, that's okay too. If you want it to open the opposite direction from what it is currently opening, fold it the other way. All right, so we did run into that again, where that the inside piece is right on top of that score line. So again, we're just going to trim off a hair. Okay. And now it folds nicely. So, what do we need next? Let's actually do our stamping so that can dry really quick before we move on. We do need 2 pieces because we have 2. Alright, so I'm going to use Scarlet and Evergreen. And the sentiment, 'tis the season. You could use Happy Holidays, like you can do whatever you'd like. There's a couple different ones. We are using the holiday banner, and this one, the thin cuts are sold out, like I said at the beginning, but the stamp itself is still available, and it's a really cool stamp set. Our piece that we're stamping on is the bracket, stitched fancy brass brackets, and that is still available. And kind of where you stamp this poinsettia is up to you on how much you want it to be seen or whatnot. And if you wanted to do a bunch of these, you could 100% do that. Create a little stencil for the thin cut pieces to be set into, and then just again and again and again. Let's also just so I can show you. Just do that. Okay. Done with our stamping. All right, so our pieces. So we have one set for each. So I'm just going to go through the one set. You have 2 pieces that are on my paper so I can make sure. 4 1/8 by 3 inches. And then you have 1 piece and a white daisy, or whatever your neutral is for your piece, right? These are both 4 1/8 by 2 7/8. And then you have 1 piece, and I only had that one flipped over so that I could easily see the difference. 1 piece that is 4 1/8 by 2. And this is going to hold our gift card. Right? So I have the same pieces over here. Again, that piece is just flipped over to make it easier to see. You might need to trim some pieces, but let's put them together and I will show you what I mean. All right, so the front is obviously going to be a full-size one. Let me trim this so it's a little bit nicer. Okay. All right, so our 3 by 4 1/8 go on the front outside. I cut that wrong. I didn't think I did. I think these are 4 inches, not 4 1/8. They are 4 inches. All right. I'm still going to use them, but I am going to adjust them. Okay. So if you cut it correctly, they're 4 1/8 by 3 inches, but these are not. Has glue. So these are 4 by 3. So let's cut these down to 2 7/8, and that should give us the same gap all the way around. So if you accidentally cut it 4 or purposely cut it 4 so you can get more, do 4 by 2 7/8. Which means, of course, the inside ones will also have to be cut down, but let's get to those here in just a minute. I'm going to move to this trimmer because it's smaller and easier to do. Okay, so these are also 4 inches, which makes sense because I literally cut them at the same time. 2 7/8. Okay, let's try this again. It does give a nice border, so, and you can get more from your B&T if you cut it at 4 instead of 4 1/8. Which is fine. All right. So, inside and outside. Right. So your white daisy should have 0 problems. Although that one I am, of course, going to have cut correctly. So, goodness gracious. Okay. I don't know what my brain was doing. So if you wanted to do a little bit of stamping on this before you put it in here, that would be super cute and fantastic. Okay, so on one of my samples, let me see which one. Because of the scoring, I actually wanted to show you this. Oh, I wish I'd lined up that way a little bit better, but that's okay. So on this piece, I need a contrasting color. On this piece, right, this is the flap over piece. You can see that I have it lined up all the way to this far edge and all the way at the top, because when it's closed, it already has that gap or that matting on the top and on the side. Okay, if yours does that, feel free to do it that same way. Okay, on this one, mine does reach almost all the way over to the edge, right? That's what we want it to do, is reach all the way over. But sometimes, oops, wrong thing. Here we go. Sometimes that's not necessarily the case. So you may not need to adjust your other piece, right? Because it looks like it fit right, because it was already cut at 2 7/8. Because we were going to trim away some of that piece that folded in, right? So we already knew that was going to be cut down a smidge. And then because of the matting and the spacing and such, you don't need to change anything. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. But again, do pay attention to what space you have off of the actual paper you are attaching. Okay, so we have, this is 98% done. All we need is our little spot for our card. I highly recommend liquid glass for a couple of reasons. It is a real workhorse. You don't need a ton of it. It is going to keep everything nice and secure, and you can create a thinner border with it than you can with a tape runner. Or at least any of them that I know of. Okay, we're not going to put a card in there yet. We're going to let that dry. This one goes right here. All right, let's do this one right quick. All right, the hardest part is going to be determining which way is up and which way is not. I'm gonna cut this piece down. See, in this piece, ever so slightly overhangs on this side. So I am actually going to trim that. Okay. It will just look nicer in the end. Alright, and then a little bit of liquid glass. And we're almost done. So, if you cut your paper to the right size before you cut your 1-inch pieces, oops, then you will not have the score line. But even if you have this score line, you can still make this work perfectly with your things. So I'm going to grab this gift card and I'm going to just set it inside here so that we have the thickness that we need for our whole package. All right, so number one, check and see if one side is slightly longer than the other. And in this instance, we want that side to be on the back side of our project. Okay. We're going to rotate it and we're going to bend this around, right? We're going to try and keep it straight. And we're just going to pinch it, but then we're going to roll it looser, right? So we want this end to come up a little bit, right? We're still kind of pinching, right? You've done the rolling of the cardstock before, right? Let me grab a slightly smaller piece. Right, so we have our cardstock, we have it pinched, and we have it lined up here, but we want to just kind of roll, and you can see now it's not lined up again. But when we roll it back, we have a rounded corner here instead of a harsh fold. Okay, this will allow us the space to pull on and take off the belly band for our pocket. Okay, so we are going to trim essentially right along where the paper is, the B&T paper. Okay, this does not have to be a perfectly straight line. It's going to be hidden. Okay, so we're going to open. I'm going to take this out just for a second so I can show you. We are going to apply glue. You can use liquid or you can use runner. We're going to apply it here, and we're going to apply it here. I know you can't see that very well, I don't think. Okay, so those two spots that I have marked in pencil is where we're going to put the glue, so that when we fold it over and attach, it has the most coverage and we don't have to worry about possibly marking up our piece and things not covering the right way. Okay, so I'm just going to use tape runner, and I do it off my project so I don't accidentally get anything on my project. I don't want glue on my project. Okay, so we're going to lay down the long piece first, and then we're going to wrap the short piece around, and we're going to make sure to get it as straight as possible. Okay, so now our belly band moves. All right, so let's pop this card out and do the same thing on the other one. Find out which side is longer. Put that on the back side. Flip it over, making sure that our fold is still against the fold of our gift card holder. Okay. Keeping the back flat, we're going to fold this over. And sometimes the cardstock wants to pull this fold under, so make sure that that's not happening. And then pinch and then roll back just a smidge, right? We don't want very much. Okay, so this is enough to get this part of my pencil in, but not that part of my pencil in. Okay. Alright, so again, we're going to do the outside of the long piece and the inside of the short piece. Making sure that you have no glue overhang. And you don't just want to put it together like this, right? You don't want to just do this, because then it's not going to fit. You have to do it around your project. And you need to make sure it's straight. Okay. Voila. Now, all we have to do is add our front. Now on this one, I just noticed I did not get this very straight. That's okay, because we can just grab our scissors and just trim so that we don't have any glue showing. So if you didn't have the score line on your paper, you could just wrap it and fold it wherever. Do finger bends with slight rolling so that there's enough room. And then you can have your seam anywhere. But the secret to having it look really nice is you have it on the front, which at first sounds really silly. But we're going to glue this on here. That's going to cover up that seam. So when we flip it over, it's magic, right? Our person thinks it's magic. So we are just going to center this on here. We're going to make sure glue is only where it's going to overlap the belly band. And then we're just going to press. Okay, ditto. Just going to center our points into the center of our belly band. Add some tape runner. You could use liquid glue as well. Voila. Okay, you could be done at this point right here. But what we can do is we can fight with it, because this is on video, and why wouldn't we? Apparently this band is just a smidge too tight. All right, so we have Cozy Up dots. These are still available. I did use one gold and one, I don't know what color this is. This center color. It seemed to match the poinsettias a little bit better than the bright red did. Right? So I'm going to put them opposite colors that I did last time. So I'm going to put the gold one here. And this large size covers that center perfectly. Except I was going to pop that one up. Oh my goodness. Right? I was going to do opposite. That's fine. I'm just going to maybe need to add some glue. Goodness gracious. These ones are super thin at the edge, so sometimes they're hard to grab a hold of with your piercing tool or anything. Alright, so just going to trim this right quick. You guys know, hopefully, that I try not to showcase things here on these Thursday videos is not Tuesday, goodness. That you don't have the ability to get anymore, short of like eBay or something. Because if you want to be able to make a project, I want you to be able to make the project. Right? So, yes, if you have the thin cuts for this stamp set, feel free to use them. You do not have to hand cut. Right? So feel free to use the tools that you have available to you. Part of why I do this way is I have found that I can keep the points on the edge of my blossoms and my leaves pointier if I cut them in this fashion, as opposed to just going around and up and down and up and down and up and down. But even still, this particular one does not take all that long to do. Right? Ta-da! It's going to take longer to figure out. No way. What? I'm a fibber. Alright. I've never had that happen before. Ever. That's really cool. Alright, so this is lined up on my stamped poinsettia. So I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to grab my pencil and I'm going to mark on the poinsettia that I just cut out inside my my bracket space. Okay, I don't want to just outline because I don't want to get pencil on the outline of the shape. Right, so I have this mark now. So now I can grab my foam tape. Ouch. And just add these on here so that it will pop up. And I will tell you guys that right now my fingers are so cold that I am having a really hard time. Goodness. I have a heater on right next to me. Alright, so we know that this is going to go like this. If I wanted to, I could. Actually, I do want to. Now that I've already put that stuff on there. Nope. I'm going to stay where it is. Partly because I don't want to go too far above the actual gift card holder with the flower itself. It does a little bit, but not a whole lot. So if you wanted to keep it in bounds, you could always move this piece down a little bit, or you could adjust how you're stamping on there. All right. I think there's probably enough glue on here to just do that. Okay. And that is card number 3, and 4. So let's, goodness. Make space for everything in screen. So those are our planned cards for tonight. So I just wanted to say thank you everybody for coming, watching the live, for watching the replay, chatting with me, and leaving comments. I love seeing you guys make cards. Christy, thank you so much for tagging me and showing me the cards that you made. I really, it makes my heart happy to know that you guys really do like the videos and find them useful. So that being said, thank you. I'd love to see you guys. If you haven't already, if you could subscribe to my channel and hit like on this video and any video that you've watched that you've liked. Hopefully you've liked all of them. And I would love it if you shared the videos with anybody else that might be crafty. So thank you. And you're welcome to go. I am going to revisit this piece that we had left over. And so it shouldn't take too terribly long. So don't feel bad if you need to go or just plain don't want to stay. I get it. But let's see. All right, we need a gift card. Not in that one. That one's in the pocket. There we go. I didn't actually put it in the pocket of any of those. So, what if we I need a visual representation. What if we did this and then this and then flipped this up? Or if we flipped this up and then folded here, and then we could have this flip over. Okay, let's do that. Okay. Yes, this really is how my brain works. And we'll see if it actually works. All right, so the bump we create goes in. So we want this on the outside, so we want the bump on pushed in. All right. So if we do if we do 3 inches for overhang, and we need at least 1 inch, right? So count 1. That makes that 4.5. So we could do 1.5. That's too big, so it definitely has to go that way. So 1.5 is about half the card. Okay. Okay. 9 inches there. 1.5 there. So that leaves us with 7.5. All right, so 7 is 3.5. 3.5 makes 7. So 3 3/4 from 1.5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So 5.25. Ooh, I cut that kind of close. Okay. Alright, so we want this on the outside. I should have flipped some of these over. Alright, let's flip some of these over. Will it matter? I don't know. No. Nope, I did that right. Never mind. Alright, but I do also want to do... So I will do this sometimes on pieces that I want to have roll just a little bit better. So I have already scored at 9, but 9 and an 1/8 is too much. I want 9 and a 16th. This board doesn't do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that score line to the center space between 9 and 9 and an 1/8. And then I'm going to score. So now I have a score at 9 and 9 and a 16th. So I'm just kind of rolling the cardstock to get that secondary score line. I'm going to no, I'm not going to, because that's a fold and a fold. All right, let's add that roll here. I did not plan for the score lines plus the added fold inside, so I need to do that on this one. All right. So we have the line at 5 1/4. Again, we're going to move that in the center and then do 5 3/8. No, I needed to do it the other way. That's okay. All right, so I'm still going to move that 5 1/4 to between, and then I'm just going to score at 5 1/4 again. So the cardstock's going to fight you a little bit because there's such a small amount of space between those score lines. Like, it doesn't understand what you're trying to do. Beautiful. All right, so we have just over 3.5 by 3 3/4. So not quite square. It's a cute little thing. So it's going to open a couple different ways. So I have more than enough space here to just add glue. I'm going to go ahead and center this card, and then I'm going to kind of create a hard soft crease right there. Right, so you can kind of see it's almost like letterpress. So it helps it fit nice and smooth. All right, so this will flip up. So we will have paper here. We'll put white here so there's a spot to write. And then this will flip over. Yep. I like it. All right. Three and a half by 3. So let's make this 2 3/4. Right? Am I doing that right? 3. So 2 3/4. By 3 and a half, so 3 1/4. Just all right, 3 1/4. What did we determine this was? 3 3/4. So we need this 3. I'm going to cut it slightly large. So I'm going to do 3 5/8 just to make sure. Okay. Because of the rounding, it's a smidge weird, so I'm cutting off just a hair. Perfect. Beautiful. All right, so let's go ahead and put this in here. We decided that was 3 1/4. Yep. Right, inside, outside. And then we can do that's 1 1/2. So let's just do 1 1/4. Right there. That is not big enough. I will have to do the white part later. No, I won't. Awesome. And look at that. We're going to have another one all done. Semi super fast. I didn't actually pay attention to the time. So I don't know how fast this is. But with this, you will have 3 fun gift card holders from 1 sheet of 12 by 12. All right. Do we want fireplace or Christmas tree? Let's go with Christmas tree. Obviously, we're going to use both, but we needed to pick one for the outside. Okay, voila. And there you have another one. If you wanted to create a little something sentiment here, you could use that to tuck this piece in. But I'm not going to go into that right now because I've already taken enough of your time. This one I know is a little bit longer, but like I said, we did have this little bit of extra on there. So thank you for joining. Just kind of a recap. I just want to close this so it will look nice. Move all the stuff. All right, voila. All right, so we had 4, 6, 8, 9 cards. Well, some of them were samples, but I hope you guys enjoyed the card class tonight. I can't wait to see what you guys do with it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know if it's again or not, but my name is Michelle. I appreciate you joining me. This is Crafters Northwest, and I do a free Thursday video every week. You get at least 3 cards and sometimes more. So, thank you, thank you. Have a great night. Bye.